Okay, so hopefully everyone got some good fuel in themselves at lunch and are ready for an exciting afternoon. What's that? No mic. Hello, check, check, check. 1, 2. Okay. Hopefully everyone had a good lunch and got some good fuel for an exciting afternoon. We are going to start out with Marc Davison. This is going to be a fun and exciting presentation, I have no doubt. And I was speaking with Marc before this during lunch and talking about, the brief introduction that I would give of him. But Marc has a very colored background and quite a journey and a lot of exciting stuff. So I thought it'd be fun for us to just do a little bit of discussion here about where he comes from and where all of this information, the background behind it. So, Marc, you grew up in New York City.
Grew up in New York City.
Went to Princeton University.
Yep.
And at Princeton, you became very involved in your writing and music, which you had grown up loving in the first place.
Right.
And then tell me about after that, then you went to work in New York.
Yeah, when I graduated, I took a little hiatus. I got signed to a record label. So my group put out a record, put out a single, but I didn't like the life of being on the road.
So were you playing? What were you doing?
I was a guitar player.
Okay.
I wrote the music, but I sort of got a better offer from my girlfriend, who gave me that, either marry me or you can continue playing music and I'll go off and do other things. So I took that offer instead. I married her. And I started at Young & Camp, an ad agency.
Yep. So he started working with an ad firm in New York City and then decided that wasn't for him, that he wanted to branch off and do his own thing. And so, but then you moved to California from there.
Yeah, for 21 years or so, I ran my own agency, mostly focused on the music industry, which I knew and loved. And I sold it in '96 and moved everybody to California. California dream. Yeah.
And then your endeavors there, moving to California and purchasing real estate there, is what really kind of got you stuck in the real estate industry. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so you guys might be interested in this. I went to buy a home, and I was told I needed to get a home inspection, which I had no idea what that was. So I looked in the newspaper, and I found, my agent had given me some names to call, but I just happened to be looking through the paper, and I saw an ad from this guy named Davison. And I liked his ad. I liked what he had to say. He looked like a home inspector. He had a safari hat on and a screwdriver. So I hired him, and my agent flipped out. And he said, the guy's a deal killer. Don't use him.
We know that.
But that sort of intrigued me. Like, I want that guy. Like, I want to know what's wrong with the house. So in my agent's protest, I hired Barry, and he went through the home. He did about 5 hours, and he killed the deal. We found out that the foundation was sinking and the electrical needed to be completely replaced. So the agent was even more pissed. But the next day I found another house and we got back on the drawing board and I bought that one. But I was just thinking about this reality of like who's on my side. My agent didn't seem to be representing my needs as a consumer. This inspector who I never met and paid him a few $100 and was more interested in it. So I approached him and asked him if he ever thought about writing what he knows, because his report was very articulate. And as it turned out, he went to UCLA. He was a journalism major and always dreamed of being, a syndicated writer. So like talk about kismet, right?
Whoa, and then he became an inspector.
Because he wanted to move out of LA. He lived up where I was living in San Luis Obispo. And I said, well, just so happens I know like every single newspaper editor in the country. So it took me a week. My background is sort of brand building. So it took me a week to create a brand around it. I called it Inspectors in the House. And made a logo, helped them write some questions, helped them write the answers, and within a week I had them in like 5 or 6 newspapers. And that just led to 400 newspapers by the end of the year.
So then Marc was syndicating real estate information, getting real-time data about experiences that other customers were undergoing and things like that, and syndicating those facts to newspapers and forums.
I was doing all that from the Chase Lounge by my pool.
Very cool.
And so took me a long time to get to that lifestyle. But so I get a call one night from anybody not know who Inman News is? As you all know who Inman News is. I had no idea who they were. I get a call from this guy named Brad Inman, I just picked up the phone. He goes, "Who the F are you?" So I said, "Well, who the F are you?" And I hung up. And he called me back. He goes, "I'm Brad Inman. I'm real estate's #1 syndicate except that you're like in 10 times more publications than I am. How did you do it? So that led to me flying up to San Francisco and meeting with Inman, and that's where I met Brian, who was running it. He's now my business partner. And I decided to take Inman on as a client, I guess, and help build their brand. This was 1997. So I started working again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when I got into real estate, I started seeing, like, you know, from an advertiser's point of view, or a brander's point of view, or a marketer's point of view, I saw a lot of things that didn't make sense to me that agents and brokers were doing in terms of how they were approaching the internet. And so while I was helping Inman build their thing, I was making friends with real estate people, and I just started offering free advice based on what I know, like traditional advertising and marketing. And like one thing led to another, and I ended up here at 1000 Watts building a firm that does that every day.
Yeah. We love that Marc is innovative, he defies the norm, he speaks his mind, he tells it like it is, and this presentation is going to be pretty cool. It's provocative, but take away from it, you know, what you can. It's pretty exciting. So thank you, Marc.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Let me say one more thing, so that I don't forget to say this. If you don't follow Marc's blog, 1000 Watt, the number 1000, W-A-T-T, do it. It's so cool, and receiving the constant updates from his blog, his content's just really cool. So.
Thank you. I'll make another public service announcement about that. So I was just telling Laura that I was under the impression that I was coming here for a luxury real estate conference. But being here last night, and I know these guys, I've worked with them a couple of years ago when they were young and small. But I think this event is a lot more than just a luxury event. This is a special event put on by special people, for special people who have done some really creative, innovative things in real estate that I think has made some fundamentally special things happen for consumers and people. So to me, this is far more than just a luxury thing, and I'm saying that too because I don't really have a luxury presentation. Mine is more about innovation, disruption, and destruction, which honestly I think Concierge sort of leads the forefront, and so do you guys in that regard. So let's get started. Drake's Cakes, not Drake's, Hostess, who owns Drake's, and I'm from the East Coast where Drake's is far more prevalent than Hostess. But they're the makers of these fine cakes known as zingers and snowballs and Twinkies, and probably the most politically incorrect cake there is, ho-hos. So they've been in the news lately, right? They've gone out of business. So how does this sort of iconic, can we dim that light too, by the way, if that's possible? So how did this iconic brand, that's been around for dozens and dozens of years, go out of business? Well, the truth is, and what you read in the paper about their labor union laws, it's maybe part of the reality, but the real reality is that their product has sort of fallen out of favor with America. We know them by this. This is like probably in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. No, it's that light right there if that's possible. In the 50s, 60s, and 70s, this was probably the only loaf of white bread that was nationally distributed. And everybody ate Wonder Bread. You had breakfast on it, you made your peanut butter and jelly sandwich on it for lunch, you had it for dinner. But by the turn of, let's say, the 1980s, when we started to become health conscious, we began to eat more organic breads. If you remember the aisles in the supermarkets just started shifting from all this white bread to whole wheat and grain bread. But even more importantly is people started eating less and less bread. And when you look at the statistics of like what people are eating for breakfast, it's this is sort of the number one item. I think like 45 million Americans eat yogurt every day, which represents about a third of Americans who are eating this versus bread. And the truth is that Hostess never really shifted with the change in the marketplace. They just kept creating more and more crappy snacks rather than thinking about how they can expand into a new reality. Now, this is another interesting little example of what's going on. How many of you own a Kodak camera and use it? One, okay. Really? But how many of you use pictures in your daily work as a real estate agent? Like you all do. But 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, everybody had a Kodak camera, or a Polaroid, or one of these devices that they were using to take photographs. This is a 130-year-old brand that had huge market share. Between the years of 2011 and 2012, as this company began to start going bankrupt, this little whimsical little app known as Instagram launched on the App Store, and it really had one function. You take a picture with your phone and you post it on this social network that when it launched really had nobody doing it. So just imagine what had to happen for there to be users shooting photographs and then users liking that stuff and creating a community around it. Within a few months, this whimsical little nothing of an app raised $60 million while Kodak was trying to find ways to keep itself out of bankruptcy. And we know how this story ends, right? 13 months later, this app sells for $1 billion to Facebook, and Kodak goes out of business. So the way I kind of spin this is, we're living in this new environment where innovative things that are sort of disrupting things and perhaps even destroying them at some point, has always been a fact of life. But the span of time between innovation disrupting things and destructing things were, tens of thousands of years and thousands of years and hundreds of years and tens of years. And now what we're seeing is sort of the spinning cycle that's almost happening all at the same time. Like you could wake up in the morning, download a cool app, tell your friends about it, and by the nighttime there's an even cooler new app that could do the very same things but more. And I'm sure you've experienced that at some point. So this has sort of created this interesting conundrum for people because we really don't know how to forecast the future anymore. Let me ask you this, like 7 years ago, when things were, or 8 years ago, when things were really good in real estate, when you were all really successful doing what you were doing, did you ever imagine that 3 years from that point, you would be partnering up with an auction firm to help you sell luxury real estate to bidders? You never even foreseen that. You couldn't have ever planned that. And the truth is, 4 years ago or 5 years ago, when you were in the midst of this terrible bubble burst, did you ever imagine you'd be here at the Mandalay Bay 4 years later celebrating your success? Right? Like, you just reacted. But there's something special about you, because this room isn't filled with 1 million real estate agents. There's just a few of you here. Somehow you got the message, and while everybody else is crying, whoa. We can't forecast. This is a fuzzy future that's part of our world, our economy, socially. We don't know where we're going. So this has sort of created this new environment, or this new sort of psychographic called this generation flux. Has anybody read about that or heard about that? Well, it's essentially, it's not an age demographic, it's more like a psychographic. It's just people who are learning how to live in a world where we can't figure out what tomorrow is going to bring. Like, we just become very nimble. Creativity and innovation. See, so this is critical. To survive today for any entity, you need to be creative, you need to be innovative. This is true for like Louis Vuitton and their new strategies for product development. This is true for Gucci and Hermes and how they view themselves or conceive the world around them. This is true for Best Buy and how they are trying to figure out how to survive in this huge world of e-commerce. And it's true for real estate agents. And the very things that you've had to do to get here, somewhere in there was a spark of innovation and creativity that is instinctively within inside of you. And I think part of what I'd like to do today is help bring that out and challenge you, because as you're coming through the bad times, having had this success, you're now going to be entering some good times, right? The market's coming back. And we can think, oh man, if I'm doing really good now, just imagine how things are going to be. But that's not the case. In fact, I was having a conversation with my business partner 2 weeks ago. Because like Concierge, we formed this small little boutique elite ad agency for real estate in 2007, when no one could afford, like who would be able to afford the services that I was going to sell at, $10,000, retainer fees a month. And yet we did amazingly in the first year. We did more amazing in the second year. More amazing in the third year, because what I learned was that in desperate times, there are certain people who, that's when they strike hot. Right? They take advantage. Well, their competitors are sitting around trying to figure out what are we going to do, and they start cutting things and slashing costs and firing executives. There are some people that we're looking to build and invest. So we need to think about, like, what are you going to do now that times are good? You're going to see even more new innovation and possibly even things that are going to challenge you guys. Oops. I'm going to need your help because I pressed the wrong button. Thank you. So the challenge, right? The challenge today, I believe, is to solve the apparent paradox that pits innovation, that pits disruption against things that are endearing, things that are timeless, or as I like to call it, things that are just traditional and old and like aren't really part of our world anymore. And I know you can relate to this because I'm sure you have colleagues, real estate agents and brokers, who are just so tied to that hitch post of tradition that they're not willing to try something new and change. And this really is a challenge. Now, if you want to be successful, you have to adapt. You have to recalibrate everything. You got to recalibrate your careers. You got to recalibrate your business models, right? I'm sure you're doing that. You got to recalibrate pretty much how you think about everything. To some degree, you really need to just embrace instability. It's like part of our life, and that's sort of where the most successful innovators are coming from. So I'm going to use this as an example because it's something we really can all relate to. So you guys remember Napster, right? It's 1999. The music business, I was in the music business. I remember one of my last conversations with Sony executives was I wanted to put a video camera inside the recording studio and record one of our artists making their record. And Sony just couldn't understand how I'd want to release that material to the public before the record was going to come out. And I wasn't sure I really understood that either at the time. It just seemed cool. Like, why not give the world something new to do other than just buy a finished record? I found myself always, even as an artist, but then as a manager and a PR guy, like fascinated by that process. So in 1999, Napster comes out and gives this file sharing thing, and the RIAA, the recording industry, basically sues them. And like a seven-headed hydra, each time, so they put Napster down, and then Pirate Bay explodes, and then they go after Pirate Bay, and then BearShare comes, and then Kazaa comes. One after another, people keep creating the same thing that keeps getting sued by the RIAA. Apple had a different approach. And their idea always was think different. Remember that first commercial they made during the Super Bowl? So their whole think different thing was embodied in this one little computer that sort of looked different, it felt different, it worked different, had a different platform, which really meant that only 3% of the public used Apple. So the way I spin it is 97% of the world couldn't stand Apple. But they were okay, because they had 3% of the world that loved them. But in 2002 or 3, in looking at the scenario, they decided to think really differently. And instead of creating another share tool, they created iTunes and the iPod. And well, we know the story that happened from there, but there's a deeper story that you should be aware of, is that over the course of the last 8 or 9 years, are there Apple users here? I see the glowing apples. Right? Think about their products. The Macintosh put an end, basically disrupted and destructed their original computer. They've been putting out all kinds of different types of iPods each year, putting the other iPods sort of out of business. They've created the iPad and the MacBook Air. They're constantly destroying their own product line and inventing new product lines that displace, disrupt, and destruct their own stuff. So when I talk about innovation, disruption, and destruction, I'm not talking about you being destroyed. I'm talking about you innovating and disrupting and destructing your old bad habits and continuing to innovate. Or somebody else will do that to you and affect you. So what I want to do here is sort of talk about a little bit about some innovation that's happened. Just give you some examples. Anybody familiar with Car2Go? So this is a car rental business that is meant to displace Zipcar, which is a new kind of car rental business that was meant to displace Avis and Hertz. There's something unique about Car2Go. If you don't know what it is, they're in big cities around the country. They come out of Germany. They basically are these little smart cars that invade a city. They make deals with the city that allows these cars to be parked anywhere. They don't worry about the meters. And the beautiful thing about this is you pay only for as long as you're in the car driving. So if you drive the car, start here, and then drive it. This is where I live, by the way, in Portland. It's always raining. That's why it looks wet. So if you drive up here, and that's where you're going, you get out, and you're done. 5 minutes, and that's all they charge you for. Do you know who owns Car2Go? Anybody? Close. Really close. Mercedes. So why would a car company create a rental car company and sort of displace their own automobile sales? Well, Mercedes is foreseeing, I'm spacing out on your name in the red dress that spoke before me that intimidated the hell out of me. Morgan, that's right. But she was talking about people that are selling their homes and migrating back to the cities. I'm one of those people. I sold a beautiful home in California, gave up all of my possessions, and moved to an apartment building. And I live on the top floor of a beautiful building. And when I come down, I can walk anywhere I want to go. I don't need a car, I just use car to go. But car to go is seeing that trend. And they're realizing that sales may one day start to evaporate, except amongst the ultra-rich. So it needs to do something to protect itself. So it's almost displacing or disrupting its own car sales business and creating a completely new business for itself. Pretty mind-blowing. Anybody here at Burberry? Fun little luxury brand. One of my favorite brands of all time. I love these guys. If you scroll the fashions at Burberry.com, you're going to notice that there's very little evidence of that original beige, black, and red check. They're really pushing the envelope in terms of like edgy fashion. But more importantly, and they've had a new CEO since like 2006. So since 2006, they've been doing all this really edgy stuff, including like they did a 3D simulcast of a runway show, and I think last September they did a catwalk show. They broadcasted it live into their stores and allowed shoppers to literally order goods right off the runway through iPads that they had all over the store. It's pretty innovative. But like what's even more innovative about what they've done is they're only one of a handful of luxury consumer good brands that allow you to order a product directly off of a mobile device. Their app lets you buy stuff. Because they're looking at the numbers. 37% of ultra high net worth shoppers are engaged in mobile commerce. It's not just regular people that are like downloading apps and buying stuff for 99 cents or going to eBay and making a bid on something. It's everybody. Everybody's doing it. In many ways, we're like all really starting, all these different demographics are starting to merge and behave like each other. Now, sometimes I never really talk about social media. It's like air. We all breathe it, we all know what it is, but I do find that in a lot of real estate events, a lot of people aren't using it yet. They sort of roll their eyes at it, they think it's silly. It's not silly, just a lot of people are silly in how they use it. But like, look at Burberry's Facebook page. It's 14 million people like the page. That's significant. And I don't know who those 14 million people are. I gotta assume some of them are, high-end luxury people that have Facebook profiles and like to like stuff. Gucci's right behind them with almost 10 million fans. I mean, this is serious, the way these companies are innovating even on social media. So when you hear things like social media could be a tool or a vehicle for marketing, don't just, I'm not saying you do, but in general, like, don't roll your eyes at it even though you know people who use it in a silly way. There's very powerful ways in which you can be using it. So, innovation is a state of mind. You either subscribe to this or you don't. And it really doesn't matter who you are. What I'm basically saying here is that whether you're low end, whether you're middle end, whether you're high end, creativity, I mean, whether you're Subway sandwiches or Ford or any high end luxury Chanel, it doesn't matter. Creativity, innovation, challenging the status quo is going to be your pathway toward the future. So I want to talk about, just quickly, some key concepts to unlocking innovation. And I think you're going to recognize that I'm really talking to you guys about a lot of this. So sort of the first key concept you need to have is just this insane curiosity for stuff. Like, you ever watch a little kid walk around and just stick their finger into everything? How many of you have kids, little kids, or know of little kids that at 2 years old, they're already using the iPad? Right? They're already like downloading apps on the iPhone. Like, how is that even possible? They seem to come out of the womb and know how to use technology. Well, that's not the case. I mean, I've watched my kids do this. They just touch everything. They press every single button. They're not afraid. They don't know that they don't think that I'm going to damage anything. In fact, little kids love to damage stuff. But I think this innate curiosity that we need to have about things, about trying things. So we need to be super curious. And we need to stop governing the world by like its finite laws. But I want to take that to the next place, which is openness. Because it's one thing to be curious and go, well, let me take a look at that. That's not for me. I think we need to really become open to everything. Not only just be curious, but to test things out. So over Thanksgiving, I don't know if you guys saw this, but they did a special on Pixar. Anybody see that? It was really interesting, and just the way Pixar basically like innovated beyond belief to create its success. But the whole way that A Bug's Life came to be was because they were testing this small little camera that they created, and they put it on the ground. And when they looked at the footage later, for the very first time, a human being was able to actually see what it must be like to be a bug and look up at this canopy of grass and flowers and stuff that's like, we just look down and see it that way. But imagine trying to look up from it. It's a whole nother world, and that spun this idea of like building this movie, A Bug's Life. They could have looked at it and said, okay, that's cool, let's move on. That's silly, let's not bother with that kind of perspective. But in truth, like, they explored their openness. Tunnel vision is very limiting, and there's a lot of tunnel vision that I know you see in real estate, which is your edge and you don't have it. But it's critical to take it to the next step, which is directed serendipity. I think people, creative people and innovative people, we're kind of like billiards balls, right? We've got this mass and this velocity, and we get thrust into these sort of bumpers and cushions, and then we bounce off, and we don't know where we end up. Some people freak out about that. I love that. I love ending up in places I never know. In fact, every single thing I've ever done in my life, I had no clue what I was doing. And I embrace that completely, because these wonderful mistakes that we end up in, if you're a voyager of life, if you gain the wisdom that we all have after living for a long time, you realize that we can make the best of every single bad situation. I love checking into a hotel when my hotel room sucks. Well, I know immediately within 5 minutes I'm going to get a better hotel room. And there are some people that get upset, and they argue and they yell at the front desk, how could this happen to me? I wish it upon myself every time. So I love mistakes. And you should be directed by this sort of odd thing that happens in life where you just end up in a place that you didn't expect. But there's one more level that I want you to take it to, which is this sensual level of really getting involved in the mistakes or these places that you bounce off into. It's kind of when you first started working with concierge. I want to tie it back to that because it was, to me, like when I heard about it for the first time, it just seemed so odd that these intense luxury homes would be auctioned off. And I couldn't imagine like agents actually taking the step to do that and to present that to their sellers. And I know this personally because I have a friend who I spent, and Chad knows, I spent a year and a half trying to convince this ultra-rich friend of mine, who's a big shot in the music business, to just bring these guys in because his big house was just not selling. Had he only listened to me, you all would have made more money. But it took him a year and a half to just be open to this new idea. But you need to experience your own experience. You need to really get into the mistake. When you fall into a hole, like as you're falling down through it, just get involved in every single aspect of it. It's really quite beautiful. It's quite sensual, and it involves every one of your senses. And that's sort of a way in which I like to approach any new idea, is really absorb it from every single angle. So, you know, the real estate industry is no stranger to innovation. This is just a quick glance of like all the things that have been innovating around you. Morgan mentioned Zillow and Trulia. I mean, there's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of innovative ideas that have come into real estate. So what I want to do now is kind of jump a little bit to a new place and sort of show you some of the innovations that I'm seeing that's in real estate and maybe a little bit of outside of real estate, because I think this is just sort of curious stuff I want you to be open to, and just absorb it, because you may fall back on this in 6 months or a year from now or tomorrow when you're faced with a new hurdle. So Redfin, we all know who Redfin is, right? The unique little company. They should have probably gone out of business a long time ago according to real estate people, but they offer something that is keeping them here, which is they are consumer focused, completely all the way through. right down to the technology. In fact, everywhere that they have an office, I keep hearing from real estate agents that their customers search for listings on Redfin, but then hire them as the agent. But I think that's, it's only a matter of time before Redfin builds up this reputation of having really good agents. And the way they're doing that is through consumer reviews. And the way they bonus their agents is based upon how good they do and how good their reviews are. How many of you today in this room are being reviewed online? We have one. So think about your resistance to that. Why won't you do that? In fact, I would be hard-pressed, and you would be hard-pressed, to convince me that you don't book hotels before checking out reviews, or you don't buy expensive items before checking out reviews. Why should I hire you and pay you all kinds of money without checking out your review? I would even challenge you to think that if you are not reviewed in today's world, do you really even exist? Like, how do you prove that you're good? Tell me that you're good. You can tell me all day long that you're good. But ask yourself this. And I thought of this last night. We were talking about eBay. You're going to buy something on eBay, and there are 3 sellers selling the same product. 2 of them tell you how great they are, but they've never done any deals, so they have no reviews. And one guy just lives in a van down by the river, and he has 1,000 reviews. Who are you going to buy from? The guy with the 1,000 reviews. So there's a resistance to this. Redfin is going after that big time. Sobo. Has anybody heard of Sobo? Did Galen speak this morning from Estate? He did not? I thought I saw him on.
He said.
Oh, jeez. Well, that's too bad because he's cool and he's got a really cool product and a cool thing that he's doing. And it's very similar to Sawbuck. They're a virtual real estate brokerage. So being virtual, they're able to open up and light up cities all over the country. And what they're doing in these cities is remember in the old days, like, if you wanted to be an expert real estate agent, all you had to do is just say, I'm an expert. Or like when house values came out, they would have this list of agents who were experts in the market who will give you market values. There was a company out of Texas, a real estate news firm whose name I now forget. But they also had this sort of search where you can search for market expert agents all over the country. Well, to be an expert, all you had to do was register and be the 1 or 2 agents that signed up as a market expert, you were a market expert. These guys actually qualify your expertise. You really have to be an expert. You have to have done transactions to become an expert. And they have this incredible site, similar to Redfin. They've done 10,000 buyer leads to agents last year alone that they are sending out to agents across the country. But the amazing thing is 8% of those leads actually bought homes, and the industry average, the lead generation is less than 1%. So this is a very innovative, partially disruptive, if not disruptive model to the old world real estate company that's not doing any of this. I was going to write a ton of stuff about this company. I just love this company. And I know that there's Katie, I didn't know you were coming until a couple of days ago. But, so when they launched, I wrote about it. And I've been following them ever since because they created a brand. This isn't Bob Smith Realty or Betty Jones Realty. This is aspirational. They built a brand on aspiration. Who doesn't want to live the Hawaii life? Now, well, maybe me, because I had this conversation last night about I couldn't imagine doing that until they have a city, real city. But I get it, right? It's beautifully aspirational. Their whole brand, everything about the experience caters to this Hawaiian lifestyle. And the agents have bought into it. And because they were able to start fresh and new, they didn't have this sort of legacy issue with prima donna realtors to where they really couldn't enforce brand standards or any kind of standards. There's a standard here. And I don't know specifically what the standard is, but all I know this. When I was staying at the Four Seasons in Kona last year, everywhere I drove, I keep seeing Hawaii life signs next to these multi-million-dollar homes, which to me is unbelievable in the wake of luxury brands like the Koa Banker Black Label brand or Sotheby's. And all due respect to Sotheby's. But these guys are only 4 or 5 years old and they're nipping at their butt. And of course, I can't say enough about concierge auctions. I met them when they were Chad, and Laura, and Mike, and maybe 1 or 2 other people. Now look at the toast last night gave me chills. How big you guys have become in 4 years, during a time when most companies have been shrinking and going out of business. You do something differently. I don't need to list all of your wonderful accolades, but you belong here. But here's an interesting thing. In the midst of all this innovation, and I wanted to mention realestate.com. That's another very interesting, new, innovative brokerage. They're a paperless brokerage, meaning they have no offices, they have no nothing, but yet they seem to have their brokers. They have brokers in every country, in every state, and they have IDX for every single state in the country, which is very controversial. But instead of going to school on them and studying them, you still have these real estate brokers that are like arguing about how this is bad for the industry. I just don't believe that anything is bad. You make of it, you have to find the good in every idea. It's bad for them, because this new thing is challenging their model, but it's not bad for the industry, if the industry wants to grow. So the next sort of trend that I want to talk about is discovery. Like, how were you found? Remember the old ways in which you were found, right? You were found because you did floor time at the real estate office. Or you were found because you had a real estate agent website. But you know what's happened to that? It's been displaced by all this SEO stuff that you can't compete with anymore. Frank and I were talking about this last night. Like, how do I get found? How do I deal with my marketing? There's a whole new world of like how you get discovered today. And you know, we can talk all day long about social marketing, but that's not my thing really. So really what I want to talk about is just some little things that you could be doing. For instance, well, let's go here. How many of you have place pages on Google? So there's just a couple. So by the end of today, I'm hoping every one of you have it, because look at this. When I did a search of real estate brokerages in Naperville, where I was last week, so you get all the, you know, the common sites that come up, you know, Realtor.com and Trulia and Zillow, because they're SEOing themselves to death. But look who came up first in this organic search right here. It looks different, right? John Green Realtor, which is a client of mine, 70 real estate agents. And I was there last week doing this, was preparing a speech similar to this, and I just did a quick search, and I was surprised to see them number one. But the way they got number one is they were the first one to set up a Google Places page. And that's all you need to be found in search results, under at least that search query. And it's free. It takes, I don't know if you've done it, what, it takes 5 minutes to set up a Google Places page. Now, I mentioned how many of you are being reviewed. If you have an iPhone, later today when you get some signal, unless you have Verizon, then you have signal probably in here, just ask Siri to find you a local real estate agent, or go to Apple Maps and ask them to find a realtor. Watch what happens. In this whole city, you may get 5 people. You may get 5 dots. So in the Pearl District in Portland, where I live, I typed in realtor, and this is what I got. Now, there's 5 real estate agencies within the district, within the Pearl District. But by the way, Forbes recognized the Pearl as the hippest place in America to live. I think, you know, I moved there a year and a half ago. Maybe it had something to do with that. Right? So I clicked on one of the red dots, and look what comes up, Richie Metzler. And look at the only thing that Apple Maps really cares about and provides me, which plays to what Apple is all about and what Siri is all about. You know where Siri gets its information from? 2 places. The Wolfram Alpha database, it's a scientific database, and Yelp. That's it. When you ask Siri what's the best restaurant, the only way that it can qualify what's the best is how many people have rated it the best. Richie has 5 stars on Yelp. So the other 300, 400, 500 agents that aren't in the neighborhood aren't even here. Now, if I'm searching on my iPhone, if I'm standing in front of a property that I'm kind of interested in, and maybe I've called the agent on the yard sign and nobody's answering the phone, but I want to know information, I might do this. Like, why wouldn't I do this? If you're not rated, you don't come up, you don't exist. Now, that may be okay now because you're floating high now, but what's going to happen in 6 months to a year or whenever, when there's more of you doing what you're doing and you're getting, competition is just getting harder, and you need to be found somehow like this. I also want to talk about reputation, even though this is sort of an old thing, but I keep finding that, like, when I search for you online, I don't find much. I'm not up here telling you that you should do anything, but if you are not blogging, if you're not on Twitter, if you're not on all these different places, don't stop thinking of them as social media. Think of them as ways for you to broadcast your value. If you are not making statements online somewhere, Google is not recognizing your presence. So when I search Marc Davison, so if you wanted to search me, because you heard I was speaking here and wanted to know whether you should waste your time coming here and hearing me or not, because you don't know who I am, if I didn't come up at all, you wouldn't know. But because I have so much presence here, so I had to work at that. Because I don't want some other Marc Davison who's like a circus clown or rodeo star. I don't want you to misconstrue me with them. So it's important to have there's all kinds of things. Like, how many of you guys have an About Me page? Again, it takes 5 minutes to set up about.me. Just go there and set up a page in your name. It takes 5 minutes. And you probably don't ever have to do anything to it again, but now you have place online. So this is also about reputation, because if I can't find you, and I can't source you other than your old, Z57 website that has a bunch of junk on it, my opinion of you is going to probably be wrong. So this plays into what I call crowdsourcing. This writer for the New Yorker 4 or 5 years ago wrote a book called The Wisdom of the Crowd. It's a fascinating book. If you ever watched that Regis Philbin show, the $1 Million Question or whatever that was, and you can ask a friend to poll an audience. The polling the audience always got more right answers than any other thing that you can do on that game. The masses seem to know more than an individual. So crowdsourcing is really where content is going, where we're getting information and direction. So this really plays right into this next trend called marketing. How many of you are familiar with Street Advisor? Okay, so I'm glad you're here. Tonight, just go to Street Advisor and streetadvisor.com and type in Houston, Texas, or Los Angeles, California, or New York. You're going to see basically something like this. A list of neighborhoods throughout the city that are being rated, that have ratings, and reviews and content that look like this. Well, where's that stuff coming from? Any idea? The same people that are writing Yelp reviews are writing this stuff. This is just what the world likes to do in its spare time. We have to be busy constantly. So we're sitting on the subway, we're sitting on the can, we're sitting in the car, and we have to keep busy, so we're writing reviews about stuff. And so this is people, Chicago Girl, and somebody else and somebody else. These are people who live in these communities that are writing about their communities. You guys see the golden opportunity here? Like, you could be publishing, like, let's say you don't want to write a blog, or you don't want to tweet all day long. Don't, but go here and write about your neighborhoods. Write about your cities, write where you live, because this could one day become the next Yelp that sources like Siri go to get results from for search queries. So there's no reason why you can't be here, not only writing questions, but you'd be amazed writing details about your neighborhoods, but you'd be amazed how many questions people have here who are thinking of moving to Aspen, or moving to Carmel, or moving to wherever, want to know about that, and they're going here to ask other local residents. Why wouldn't you, as a local resident, as well as being an expert, want to participate in that type of conversation? You absolutely do. So when I was in Naperville, I did a search of Naperville, and you know what I found? There was only one review. And when I dug in deeper to look at all the neighborhoods and all the streets, there was nothing. Nobody had written anything yet, which to me was like an unbelievable opportunity for this one brokerage of 75 or 70 people to flood Street Advisor with content. Now, I know the cynic in you is going, well, I know what every realtor is going to do. They're going to write about how every single street is amazing. Well, here's where the bullshit stops. Because if I'm reading that and I have a different opinion of you because I also live on that street, I'm going to give your detail a star. I'm going to like or dislike, or I am going to dialogue with you right on the street about my opinion. So this is also kind of creating like truth in marketing. So I think this is an interesting trend coming along that you might want to consider participating in as in your quest to being innovative and creative. Speaking of an innovative and creative company, here's a 125-year-old company called Houlihan Lawrence right outside of Manhattan. And I was just wondering, Morgan, does she work for, you mentioned an agent who works in Duchess and Putnam. Do they work for Houlihan Lawrence?
I know agents that work for Houlihan Lawrence, but if I was mentioning something to find my mom, she actually works for one of the competitors.
Okay. They put it right on their homepage. They're taking the social conversation about their luxury neighborhoods, like they're luxury towns, and letting people rate them and rank them and review them, because their understanding is if we don't do it, it's not going to stop the conversation from happening anyway. Why don't we have the conversation on our website? Keep the traffic here. And if we feel like somebody is dissing a neighborhood, we'll just represent and have that. And believe me, there were agents within that organization that are freaking out about this, right? But sometimes you have to drag people into the future. So this last piece on marketing, there's always this discussion in social media about you need to tweet, you need to check in, you need to. I don't think you need to do that, but what you need to do is monitor all that dialogue. So there's a product called Radiant 6, and there's one of many that allow you to set up this dashboard to where you can basically create keywords so that anytime any discussion is going on about any kind of a topic, so one keyword could be luxury real estate. So what you're basically doing, this is just running on your desktop. But anytime there's a string of dialogue across LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or whatever that regards any one of these keywords that you want to be aware of, you're aware of it. So you're aware of conversation going on. You can hear what's going on the street. But more importantly is if you have accounts on these networks, you can jump into the conversation. And I'm going to tie this all up in a few minutes. I'm going to talk about the importance of being part of the conversation. So this isn't about you tweeting what you're eating all day long. This is about honing in on conversation that's going on. I know a guy like me who isn't really all that fascinated about spending time on social media, use things like Twitter and Facebook to find more out about Portland before I moved there from California. Because I was skeptical of the rain, I was skeptical of some things. I'm from New York City originally. Portland seemed like a small town in big city shoes. So I wanted to get some feedback. And I just asked on Twitter, I have a pretty large network, anybody live there or know anything about it? And I started getting intel. So I think it's kind of cool that you could be involved in that by just knowing where the conversations are. And I'm just going to do a quick little piece on the visual web, because are there Instagram users in here? I think it'd be sort of crazy not to use Instagram, because it's on your phone. You just take a picture, throw it up into a network, and you're sharing beautiful pictures with people all over the world. So I'll tell you this one little story. I was following maybe 100 people, but there was this one woman named Janie Coffey, who I had no idea who she was. I don't even know how I ended up following her, she followed me, but her photographs of Miami were insanely good. And I sort of did the unthinkable one day. I searched around. I typed in Janie Coffey Miami, and I found this person who turns out worked for Sotheby's real estate. And I didn't think at the time that agents were hooked into Instagram. So I sent her an email. I said, I'm Marc Davison. I don't know if you know me. I don't even know if I'm doing the right thing here. But are you the Janie Coffey who follows me on Instagram? And she called me like 10 minutes later because I had my signature file. So as it turns out, it was. And I followed her. She followed me. That's just what you do on Instagram. You follow some people. Her story was like this. A guy living in Mexico who had a $2 million home in Miami was following her on Instagram and liked her photos so much that he hired her to list the house sight unseen, just because of the way she captures just her eye, her love of beauty, her love of her city, just her thing, her spirit came through her pictures. So that's a cool little story, but just taking pictures and sharing it, you know, concierge is this great feed, and if you're on it, you could just even follow that, or not, but there are about 27,000 photo sharing apps on the web. I mean, this is the #1 sort of activity going on the internet, which is the sharing of visuals. It's where this is going, it's fuzzy. I don't know where this is going, but I just know it's going somewhere. Now I want to just jump into technology real quick. You know, your phone informs you of facts. You get alerts all the time. And it informs you instantly, like that second, which is creating sort of an environment of people that like to be informed immediately. And it's also sort of this technology that's adding value, enhancing us as consumers. You know that last year Amazon's app allowed you to go shopping and scan QR codes of products, and the Amazon app would read the product and tell you, oh, we can get you that product for less money and we'll ship it tomorrow at no cost. I mean, it's totally displacing e-commerce. But the fact that people have this device in their hands, it's just creating this world of really smart consumers. We're just smarter. And we're also a little creepier. I decided to put this in. I had taken this out, but I put it in because where I was last night, people didn't know about it. It's called Reportive. It's the Reportive app. And what you do is it's a Gmail client, basically. So you download it onto Gmail. So when I get an email, I get an email from Simon Baker or anybody, I click it open, and what Reportive does is it downloads to me a full dossier on Simon. I see his picture, I see all his LinkedIn profile, I see his latest Facebook posts, I see his latest tweets, and I can make a very quick assessment whether Simon Baker is somebody that I want to respond to immediately or somebody that I would rather not have in my life. And so you could do that. How many of you get lots of leads every day, or every week, or every month from people you don't know? Wouldn't it be kind of cool to just, before you even contact them, just get a quick read on their vibe? So, I mean, what if you found out that somebody was like, I don't know, he owned a hedge fund, or was one of these ultra rich guys? I mean, you'd respond to him in a second versus, maybe somebody not. Because you got to make those decisions. But bear in mind that people have this on their own Gmail, and they can check you out too. So when you send them an email and they're looking at your dossier, what if your dossier has nothing on it? Maybe it hasn't affected you yet, but I think in time, as we need to make more and more cautious decisions, we're going to be using these tools to check each other out. I think so. It's important not only to have a LinkedIn profile, to have some social presence, because if you don't, I mean, imagine what people are going to wonder when you have nothing and all that shows up is a blank question mark. It's going to be weird. But even more so, like if you have these assets, it's important to be cautious of what you're tweeting and what you're writing, because that very last thing you tweeted could just show up as the last thing I read here, or the first thing I read here. And finally, this thing of empowerment. So what I'm showing you here is the grand opening of the Apple Store in Grand Central Station. Like, look at this crowd. And look at that group of people. These are all the Apple employees at the top. But just compare that, like juxtapose that to this. Right? There's something going on at Apple that people want to, people go to Apple to get blown away. People go to Radio Shack to buy stuff, and that we don't just buy stuff. We really want to get blown away, especially in the luxury world, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. Those ladder of benefits that enhance our experience. At Apple, you can touch everything. At Radio Shack, I mean, everything's behind, like packaged inside this hard plastic stuff. And we don't need to ask these people anymore about anything. We can go find out about stuff on our own. So their value is greatly diminishing. At the end of the day, folks, I believe, like, inside your head is this intense intellectual capital that you need to continue to learn how to disseminate and articulate and push out into the world. Because the more you keep your stuff in your head, behind this sort of walled garden of MLS and proprietary stuff, well, the less you can really prove your value in the world, and the less people can access you and connect with you on terms that they're used to and they like. So I'm going to sort of end this thing with this riff on peer-to-peer. So, we know peer-to-peer by eBay. I sell stuff to you and you sell stuff to me on eBay. So consumers are working with consumers. But just look what's going on here. It's this whole revolution of like TaskRabbit and park in my garage and Airbnb and Rentaholic and Libcar. Essentially what's happening is homeowners, consumers, are basically offering stuff to other people. I can rent somebody's tools. Rather than going to Ace Hardware, if I need a lawnmower, I just go to Rentaholic and find out who's got some tools in their shed that they're not using. It's surplus. It's a whole surplus economy going on here, where I can park in somebody's garage. TaskRabbit's amazing. They've done billions of dollars worth of transactions. If you need a task done at your house or whatever, you just post the task, and people will bid on doing the task. You know what the #1 task being bid on TaskRabbit is? And you laugh. Building IKEA furniture. So I'm going to take it like this is a dose of reality. I have a friend, Mike Burns, who is out of work. He's living in my building. So he's out of work, and he's like, what do I do? So I go, why don't you put some bedrooms, those extra bedrooms up in your apartment on Airbnb and just rent them? So which he did. And within days of getting his Airbnb site set up, people were renting bedrooms in his apartment and staying in Portland. Now, why people do that, whatever, doesn't matter. But what I started learning about was that the people who were renting his apartments were coming from France and Canada. Like, it's just a revolving door of French and Canadian. So why is that? What was going on? Well, these are parents that are coming here because their students, their kids are coming here to go to school. I guess they read the Steve Jobs book and they wanted to come to Portland and trip out, right? So they're coming here to sort of advance it for them. So I said to Mike, hey, I got an idea. Since you're doing nothing anyway, and you got these people in your apartment, why don't you offer to drive them around the city for X number of dollars, you know, like $100 for an hour and $300 for 3 hours, whatever the numbers were, and just be their tour guide. And he goes, well, they can just get an agent to do that. I go, yeah, I know, but they don't, right? Have they called agents? No. Agents seem to be the last people want to call. So I said, why don't you do it? You know, make some extra money. I mean, agents do it for free anyway. Try it out. And he tried it out, and guess what? He was selling this crazy service of taking people around neighborhoods. A lot of these folks who were staying in his apartment wanted to buy a home where their kids could live for 4 years. So he was making money doing what a lot of real estate agents do for free. And he could do it because he doesn't have a license. He could actually talk about the schools. He could talk about, this is a gay neighborhood, this is a loud neighborhood. He could say things you can't. But that's innovative. That's disruptive. And that could be quite disruptive. But you know, I've actually said this to some people, and I found that agents are now putting themselves on TaskRabbit, hiring themselves out as a rabbit. Just bunny hopping people around the neighborhood. Still, you know, they have a license so they can't talk about the great schools, but they're making money doing what they used to do for free. I'm not saying that you should do that, but just think about how that's playing out. So middlemen are being disrupted, and they're being replaced by peers, platform, friends, information, and technology. So like, these are middlemen. If this is on your business card, what does this mean? What is an ABRM? What is an SFR? Like, who gives a shit? Right? But your LinkedIn account, your Twitter handle, like the stuff that I can go and like connect with you as a peer, as a person, that realtors have always forever wanted to make themselves human. You now have the technology. You can take pictures and share it. You can socialize. You can post stuff. You can be as human as you've always wanted to be. And just here's an example. I sign into Facebook to do a search. I'm a power user. I sign into Zillow to do a power search. Let's say you and I were friends or lovers, or we're a couple, and we're going to go buy a home somewhere in Portland, and we're looking at this neighborhood, and look what's coming up. 2 things. A local expert advertisement from Coldwell Banker Seal, or friends that live nearby. Who would we contact first? We're going to answer this ad and get lead generated, or we're going to connect with friends, be a friend. Be friends. I mean, to me, this is the wonderful opportunity of these kinds of things. So, how to roll. I'm going to wrap this up because I have no idea what time it is, and I don't know how long I've been up here. But I don't want to overstay my welcome. So, in this vast thing of rapidly spinning innovation, disruption, and destruction, you basically need to be doing what you're doing. Continue to be innovators. Continue to innovate. Continue to be curious. Continue to be open. Continue to stick your fingers into stuff. You've heard of Dotloop? This guy has already gotten $15 million for this company. He's a realtor. He just saw something that was broken and said, I'm going to fix this. And he did. Now, it doesn't hurt that he's good looking, and it doesn't hurt that he's smart, but he did it, right? Bifolio just got bought by Zillow. Andrew Machado, his girlfriend, was a real estate agent, and when he went to pick her up one day at an open house, he just couldn't believe just how sloppy the open house situation was in terms of how she's like getting people to sign up to be on her mailing list. She created Open House Pro, just a cool little app that's free. Like, if you have an idea, go for it, because somebody else will do it. So I'm going to leave you with some simple, almost stupid takeaways. The first takeaway: get out of the good old boys club. This is the best I can do in terms of trying to picture the good old boys club. Just get out of the boys club. Like, stop only hanging around with real estate people. Stop only going to real estate conferences. Go to a rodeo. You'd be amazed. Like, I know these guys at Nike. Nike's in Portland, and major stakeholders live in my building. And I was out to dinner with them not too long ago, they were telling me how they were converging on Vegas. They were coming to Vegas. 12 of them, they were going to sit in a restaurant and watch people interact in this new restaurant. Now, why would Nike do that? Because they want to learn how people interact socially so they can build things inside their retail stores that maybe could sort of create a same sort of environment. So like, get out of your comfort zone. Go hang out with other people. And sort of get out of the group thing. Because I think when you hang out with like-minded people, you start all agreeing with each other, and you're afraid to disagree with each other. Like, don't do that. Like, disagree. Challenge everything. You sort of already done that. It's in your DNA, just become aware of it. Anybody been to a TED conference? One person. TED.com. This has been going on for 20 years, I think. It's the headiest conference event thing in the world. It costs $6,000. Just, you have to be invited. And then you got to pay $6,000 just to go. It's the smartest people in the world giving talks, 18-minute talks, on things they're passionate about that converge technology, entertainment, and design. Go to TED.com every night. Just pick one video and watch it for 18 minutes. It will open up your mind. It'll expand your horizons. My 10-year-old son spoke at a TED last year. So I got to sort of be at it, and it's pretty cool. I think this is something, I do this every night. Kind of like the I Ching. You open the I Ching, you just go to one page, read it, and try to apply it. Do the same thing here. Be a kid, but also like, bring kids in on your business decisions. When you're having a board meeting, bring a kid to it. It's interesting to hear how children are really smart. And if they're given an opportunity to express themselves, they're going to challenge the way, they're going to go, why are you doing it like that? And you're going to go, well, what do you mean? You go, why don't you do it like this? Maybe they'll take your computer, or they'll go up to your whiteboard. But I run my company this way. I get my kids in my office and I want them to tell me what they think of things I'm thinking about. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but it's a perspective that you don't have as adults. How many of you take bubble baths? I told you it's silly, right? But take a bubble bath, or ride a bicycle. Like, what I want you to do is do something that releases your alpha waves, because you will never come up with an innovative idea or a creative idea staring at a computer. You have to get yourself out of your environment and rest your mind. A massage, a bubble bath, anything that just gets you. Take time out of your day to go and do nothing and let your mind rest. You'll come back with great ideas. Do you recognize this guy? He's in every single frickin' real estate brokerage in America. He's the IT guy. Right? They all look exactly like this. Right? Their office has just hard drives everywhere and Cat5 cable. It's a mess. Right? This is Dr. No. He's the guy that's protective of everything he's ever brought into the brokerage. But there's a little bit of Dr. No in every one of us. So we need to be mindful of the fact that we need to separate ourselves from these Dr. No's, even if there's a Dr. No inside of us. And we need to replace it with Captain Yes. This is the can-do guy. This is the guy that's on Red Bull. He's flying 100 miles an hour. He's up all day, all night long. Whatever you ask Captain Yes to do, he'd be like, I can do it. Right? We need to really let the Captain Yes inside of us come out. Consumers don't adapt innovation, they alter ideas. They adapt to them and they are changed by them. Don't do something different. Really become, you did something different, but become something different. Just become what you are, what I see. When I look at this audience of, how many people here? 70 people out of an industry of 1 million that have done something different, and you're here celebrating your success. Become who you are. Thank you. This is my email address, marc@1000watt.net. It should be. I made a mistake. Marc, so feel free to email me. And last thing is, we publish a really cool newsletter every week that's free, and we just showcase one cool app, how to use it from the world, like how to use it, how to put it into your business. We're not going to data mine you or spam you. It's only like 400 words. I think it'll be useful. So if you go to 1000watt.net/spotlight, sign up, you get it free from us. And thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day. Oh, I don't know. Is it questions? What do you want me to do?
Yeah, we'll do questions, and then you'll stay out there for the panel.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Sure.
Questions? Wow.
I told you.
Wow. All right.
Wait, didn't I tell you? So I stay right here?
Yes.
Okay.
So how do we get in touch with you to help us with all of this?
Well, you can email me.
Yeah.
My firm, 1000 Watt, only works with like large organizations, but I'm sort of known to just doling out help and advice all the time. So just email me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Should I sit, Laura?